Okay, so I've had some people ask me about kind of key differences between two sports. And what are those two sports? Artistic swimming and pool swimming. So I'm going to contrast. So it's going to be contrasting artistic swimming and pool swimming. And so what is artistic swimming? Artistic swimming has still known in some contexts as synchronized swimming. So it can be one person, it can be two people, it can be a team of people doing synchronized choreographed movements in water to music without touching the bottom of the pool. And pool swimming is competitive lap swimming. So it's people swimming laps in a pool against each other, but in separate lanes. So that's what those are. That's the introduction. That's what these sports are. Is that the introduction? Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be contrasting, those two sports. So what is the first evaluation criteria? Length of performance. So artistic swimming, so that's also synchronized swimming, is minutes long. Each performance is a few to several minutes long. In pool swimming, the majority of races, depending on where one is, like if a performance is required to be 2.5 minutes in artistic swimming, the majority of performances in pool swimming are shorter than that. So the length of performance on average is greater for artistic swimming than pool swimming. However, pool swimming has more range. So some of the races might be 20 seconds in the pool, and some of the races might be 16 minutes in the pool. So in terms of an average performance length, more time is required for artistic swimming than pool swimming on average. Okay, so that's the first one. This video isn't about one sport is better than the other, but it's just pointing out some differences between these sports that in conversations I have found people tend to forget. So that kind of thing. Flexibility. So in artistic swimming, people are doing, sometimes they do splits while upside down and treading. So they'll be treading with their hands. They'll be upside down with their legs out of the water and do splits. And the splits will go over 180 degrees if the person is really flexible. It's a unique thing about artistic swimming. Rhythmic and artistic gymnastics cannot actually do that because they have the floor. So artistic swimmers in that sense are more flexible, or can be and can showcase their greater flexibility than gymnasts because of the water medium. It is a unique kind of flexibility in that gymnasts have a luxury where they can breathe because they're not upside down in water. So the flexibility in artistic swimming is uniquely difficult in sports because it requires not only flexibility but extreme oxygen regulation on an individual level, because they have to be able to hold their breath and stuff like that too, to be able to execute their maneuvers. So in that sense, it's a extremely flexible required, and they are required to do certain moves as part of the choreographed routines. They're called like elements, and they're actually required to execute those in technical routines. So it's baseline flexibility is extremely high, and higher than land sports such as gymnastics, and it is required as part of the sport. So it's not like somebody chooses it, it's just part of the sport and evaluated. So it might be one leg straight up in the air, but the other leg's still in the water. So then one has to be able to hold one leg's at exactly 90 degrees to get full marks. Because it's a sport that's judged, and a panel of judges evaluate and allocate scores. So it's a point system, as opposed to pool swimming, which is times. They swim for speed. Now, okay, so in that sense, that's one that people I have found kind of get. Pool swimming actually requires flexibility too. There's, if none other than flip turns. Okay, flip turn is a somersault. It's somebody going in, swinging into the wall, flipping themselves around, and like putting themselves in a tiny little ball and flipping and pushing off in another direction. So swimmers are, in my experience, and in experience of people who have been swimmers and like I didn't swim with kind of thing, one of the most commonly accepted and true stereotypes about pool swimmers is the lack of flexibility. I will say though, it does require some flexibility, like especially if one's doing flip turns, and especially in something like backstroke where one's on one's back and then they have to roll over and do a flip. Like it might not be as extreme as is required in artistic swimming, but it does still require flexibility, or it does include. Technically, open turns are allowed, and in that sense, flexibility can actually be entirely removed. It's not the common mode of operation. I do know people who have swam at high levels and chosen open turns over flip turns, and in then that case, the somersault flexibility is removed. But so it's not required in the sport like artistic swimming requires flexibility. However, it tends to be there, just not as blatantly obvious. And then there's also the show-off type swimmers. They tend to be male, in my experience. There were a number of them on my club team, like my summer league club team, swim club team, growing up. And they would do things like stretch their arms out wide because they're copying, German swimmers from the 80s and 90s, 1980s and 1990s, and do these things where they like wrap their arms around them and touch their hands over their back. That's not an American. It didn't start with Americans. It's not from the United States of America. Those, they're called, what do we call them? They're called flexibility gimmicks. They are not very flexible individuals, and they tend to own up to that, I have found. However, they will do things like that, putting their arms and touching them together behind their backs, so they'll like this kind of thing, and then touch their arms over their back and be like, look how flexible I am. It tends to be a trick, like a gimmick, because they're not actually flexible, so they figure out something to do to make others, to try and impress others, kind of thing. So that's pool swimming. Loyalty and longevity. In partners and teammates. So some people don't like long partnerships, some people do. It's the kind of thing where gold medalists at the World Aquatics Championships in the mixed duet event, they're from Italy, they've been training together for 3 years and got the gold medal. It requires, so that's artistic swimming, mixed duet routines. I'm talking about artistic swimming. I didn't specify that, I don't think. And so it requires 3 years to get a gold medal of training together 8 hours a day. Okay, and like 6 days a week, the kind of thing. Pool swimming, on the other hand, there will be a qualification meet. And then the relays are haphazardly thrown together from some set of people who qualify. Possibly some people might be put on a relay without actually qualifying based on results. And they swim together once. The next national competition comes around or international competition comes around, and it's an entirely different relay. Or one person's gone, or all 4 people are different, or 2 people are different, or 3 people are different. So there is no longevity in pool swimming. Versus, so if one's going for like, some people say these are kind of the same thing in sports. So if one's looking for loyalty and partnership, artistic swimming has that. And it's requires a very high standard of kind of performance, versus pool swimming is kind of super high turnover, at least in the United States of America. That's not the same everywhere. Some places actually kind of have the same relay. But that's one where there's kind of a really big difference. Is there can be high turnover in artistic swimming, in artistic swimmers, but some people might be sisters or brothers or a sister-brother pair, and they might be, our goals, we compete with this person or we don't compete. That does not exist in swimming to this day at the like world championships level kind of thing. So in that sense, loyalty and longevity are kind of in the wheelhouse of artistic swimming and are not really present in pool swimming. Okay. Next one is literal distance covered in pool. Covered in the pool in a given performance. So this is one that not everybody knows about artistic swimming, is they are actually required to cover like 2.5 lengths of the pool in artistic swimming. And so both sports are conducted in a pool, artistic swimming and pool swimming. Although artistic swimming doesn't have to be in a pool, it could be in open water, but pool swimming is pool specific. Open water swimming is a different sport. So in artistic swimming, they're required to cover 2.5 lengths of the pool. So if they're and that actually is a judging criteria in artistic swimming. If it's a 50-meter long pool, that's 125 meters that they're required to cover in their performance. And so so that's artistic swimming. Pool swimming, the races range from 50 meters or 25 meters, 25 yards, depending on where one's, to kind of an upper bound is 1,500 meters approximately, or 1,650 yards. So kind of like the range. So there's a lot of people who might not ever swim and I'm an example of that. So I swam and I competed for over a decade in pool swimming, and the longest race I did was, okay, we're gonna do strokes. The longest non-freestyle event I did, so that leaves backstroke, breaststroke, or butterfly, or individual medley. I think the longest one I did, I don't think I ever did the 200-yard individual medley. The longest one I did was the 100-yard breaststroke. So for comparison, the longest stroke race I've ever done is shorter than what is required for one artistic swimming performance, which is a really long way of saying there are people who compete in the Olympic Games in 50s and 100s, and those swimmers do not cover in a single race. There's heats and preliminaries and finals and stuff in both sports. They do not cover as much distance as artistic swimmers do in a single performance. And that's a minimum. So in artistic swimming, the minimum is 2.5 pool lengths. If they're really good, they might cover four pool lengths, which would be like 200 meters. So in terms of like swimming the distance, artistic swimmers can actually cover more distance in a pool in one performance than pool swimmers. Which I've been watching and learning the judging criteria of artistic swimming, and it's kind of like, that one was kind of like, wow, they do more like swimming in terms of like how far they go than pool swimmers. I was just like, that's kind of mind blown. Okay, next one, evaluation criteria is musicality.